Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Sean Markinette. The show is called 5 Minute Mornings. My title is Success Coach, whatever the hell that means. It really means I ask people questions and then they come up with answers and then they use those answers in their life to get better results. That's really what it is. It's not anything crazy. It's not anything special. And I don't mean to take away from the idea of coaches as a really necessary part of life. Because we have different kinds of coaching all throughout life. You know, some people might call it scaffolding in a way. In fact, that's what Piaget calls it, if I'm recalling correctly. Came up with an idea that kids need some help sometimes, and maybe the best way to teach them things is to kind of let them do it first. And then you step in if they need some help, and you tell them maybe one or two things that could get them to the next phase of them doing it by themselves. Anyway, that's some really nerdy psychology talk. What I really want to talk to you about today, or what I've planned to talk to you about today, is about who we are as people and where we come from. Because when we understand the story of who we are as human beings, we start to understand what our possible limitations might be, and then how we possibly are limiting ourselves by thinking in certain ways that either we don't have conscious control over yet, or ways that we kind of know are not helpful, but maybe we haven't really fully developed the idea of what it would look like to adjust the different ways that we think in order to get better results. Here's the story. And you don't have to believe any of this, because I don't think that's really important. And let's just keep it all hypothetical, just so we don't activate the part of our brain that wants to reject things that are different. So, if you're open to the idea that evolution did actually happen in some version, I don't think anybody truly knows the real timeline. Because we keep figuring out new timelines. Or at least science keeps figuring out new timelines, and that's why I say that. And I don't think that's important. I think the big idea is that if evolution is somewhat true, if that process actually does take place, where an individual is born into a group, typically, the group kind of interacts with the world, and then the individual dies. And within all of that, there's some kind of genetic learning that happens, and then the genes are passed on in certain ways that are advantageous, ideally. I think that's the argument of evolution, that the genes that are advantageous get passed on to the next generation. If that's true, what that means is that all living beings started as one single-celled organism, and everything kind of grew from there over millions and millions and millions of years. And if you think about that, if you think about the time, if you think about the actual process of all of that happening, if you think about all the death and the birth and the living and the pain and the pleasure and all the different experiences that had to happen to that individual throughout its lifespan, and let's just take humans for example. However long it's been that humans have been in this form, maybe it's hundreds of thousands of years, maybe it's millions of years. However long it's been, there's been a lot of giving birth, a lot of life and pains and ups and downs and pleasures and all kinds of learning that happens within that life, and then there's death. And maybe somewhere along that line before death happens, maybe that individual was good enough to reproduce, and then those genes kind of move on to that new offspring. And so the death is only the death of that individual, and if they had a child, then that child kind of moves forward, and maybe they had multiple children. That's the plural of child, right? Children. Oh yeah, gotta love talking. And maybe those children have their own children, and maybe their children have children until we're here. And on a regular basis, we kind of know that. We wake up and somewhere in there, we know that we are the offspring of the process of evolution, if you think that's true, or at least if you think that some version of evolution is true, and then we kind of forget. And then we wake up, and then we live our lives, and then maybe we're reintroduced to the idea a decade later. Like, yeah, I already knew that. It's called evolution. And my question is this: have you really ever considered what that truly means as to who you are right now? Because I think if you deeply consider that, you can't help but get to a point of gratitude. And if you get to this place of gratitude for just the idea that you're alive, that there's been all this incredible pain and suffering in the process of birth and death, and yeah, there's been good stuff in there too. Let's just call it work. There's been a lot of work that has been accomplished in the past, in our ancestors' past, to be able to produce whoever we are today. And so the first piece is, are you able to feel grateful about that, if that's true? That there's been so much work done for you to be able to be who you are right now, to be able to take advantage of what is the safest time ever in history to be a human being. And I realize that that's loaded, and it's safer for some than it is for others, and there's ways you can piece that out. And if you look on average, I'm not saying we don't have a long way to go to give safety to other people, but what I am saying is on average, we are the safest we've ever been right now. And that's because of our ancestors, whether you believe in evolution or not. It's because of the people that came before us. That's just how it is. I mean, there's roads, there's parks. I'm looking outside my window right now at all these hundreds of buildings. Those were all there before I got here. And probably that was something to do with my ancestors. So can I be grateful for that? Oh my gosh. Yeah. What a great thing to be grateful for. Because it's pretty incredible, you know, the amount of work that has happened in order for us as individuals to really enjoy our existence. So today's Friday. Today's Friday, and you're about to go into your weekend. And I wanted to offer you an idea of who you are so that you can not only just feel grateful for who you are, but you can use the tools that you have, and the tool in particular that I think is maybe the most useful. And this might sound strange, but I think truly the most useful tool we have as humans is our imagination. Because if you use your imagination to ask yourself a question right now of, what do I want to happen this weekend? How do I want it to go? What if you took a minute and asked yourself right now, what do you want your weekend to be like? And who do you want to spend it with? And what emotions do you want to experience? And how could you do that? It's about 4 questions in there. What if you took control of your life by using your imagination? And by first getting real clear about who you are and where you've come from. Because we haven't always had the ability to imagine our future in such great clarity as we can now. That's also been a process of evolution. You know, the process of becoming aware, and then the process of being able to plan for the future and know that who we are in the future is actually still us. It's just, I can treat myself with respect, and I can treat myself better if I plan now and do stuff now that would make sure that in the future that I have a better time of things. You know, we save for retirement, and that's exactly this idea. That you can imagine, you can use your imagination to see into the future. And I wonder if you realize how important that is. Because we can live and we can die a million times in our mind. And if you can take control of that process, I think the first thing that happens is you start to feel negative emotions way less. Because when we imagine ourselves dying too much and in ways that are very horrific, or if we start thinking about things in the past that we can't any longer control, then we have a tendency to start feeling negative emotions. So if we can take control of that process, how we use our imagination, and if we can start using it in ways that's more helpful to us, it's going to vastly improve the quality of your life. And I say that with all sincerity because I've noticed it in myself and I've noticed it in so many other people who do this process on a regular basis. You could say that the process of setting a goal and imagining the result of the goal is a necessary component of success. You could probably say that exactly and be very correct. Some version of that, some version of having a vision, and not necessarily a visual vision, but it can be sounds, it can be feelings. However it is that you use your imagination in the most vivid way to get yourself excited about something in the future. That's what I'm talking about. So do that. And I know I say that a lot. I know I say do that, right? And come up with some really good reasons as to why you should do that. And that's what's going to motivate you to do that. And when I say do that, I mean just ask yourself some questions. What do you want? Why do you want it? How is it going to look? All that. So go forth, have a great weekend. Have a fantastic weekend. I wish that is just the beginning for you, an opening for you into a life that maybe is even more grandiose and crazy than you could even imagine. Because who we are moment to moment is constantly changing, and what we think is possible is also constantly expanding, if that's what you want. If you want the ability to see more options, you can. All you have to do is ask yourself questions. So enjoy your weekend. Have a great time. I'm going to talk to you on Monday. Some really cool stuff to talk to you about on Monday, so stay tuned for that. Monday, we're going to do mindfulness. Mindfulness Monday. How about that? Huh? That could be a thing going forward. Let's see. Let's see how it goes. So ask me any questions that you have. Of course, there's always SeanMarkinette.com. That free 7-day training is up there. And please go take a look at that if you feel so compelled, and ask me questions about that too. I will see you Monday. Have a great weekend.